Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Smart Divorce podcast. And it's very special because I'm going to be speaking for the first time to a couple who are now divorced but have an amazing co-parenting relationship. And they're going to tell us how they got from the beginning, where I'm assuming, and I am assuming, that it wasn't always perfect, to where they are now, which is a good level of co-parenting relationships. I'm really excited to welcome Catherine Morgan and Andy Morgan. Thank you both so much for joining me.
No
Bye.
problem.
So, Catherine, do you want to just introduce yourself, just talk a little bit about what you do and tell us about the kids that you're co-parenting together?
Sure. So I'm Catherine. I have two sons. We have two sons, 9 and 12, two boys. I trained as an accountant and retrained into financial services as an advisor. We've been divorced for 8 years, and I'm based down in the south.
Fabulous. Andy, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. I am a project engineer for an engineering company. Been there many years. I live probably 15 minutes or so away from Catherine and the boys, so we're nice and close. I decided to move somewhere which was between work and a marital home, I guess. So we're very close by, and we have quite a fluid share with the children. We have fixed days, but we're quite fluid in between.
Brilliant. So the boys were young when you got divorced. What was it like initially, Andy? What were some of the hurdles that you needed to get over?
So initially the hurdles were personal hurdles for me. Sitting in a new home on my own, a quietness and just myself was a big hurdle to get over. That was quite unpleasant initially, but what got me through, I guess, is knowing that we did this for the right reasons, for the long-term reasons, and the short-term pain would be short-term. How long, wouldn't know, because the process just it moves on as it does in your minds and how you get on with each other. That was a big hurdle personally for myself. Other hurdles were deciding on the share of the children, who would have them when. I wanted to make sure that I saw my children regularly, more than just once every 2 weeks. So that was a hurdle to get through. And we came to a good arrangement. I see them officially every other weekend and every Wednesday. I think that's quite a nice amount of time and consistency for them to, and for me as well, to still feel close to them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point, because actually deciding on not just the amount of time that you see them, but how you're going to structure that time is really difficult. You know, I've heard of people that, well, we always have them half a week each, or we always have them a week each, and we change on this day, and then it can get really complicated. I'm interested in how not how the negotiations went, because I don't need to know about the battles, but how you came to that agreement about when you would spend time with them. Was that a long process?
I don't think it was too long. My base point to Catherine was what I said. Every other weekend is, I guess, what would you call it, an industry standard, and that wouldn't be enough for me. That my base point was more than that. So that was the point we started talking and thinking about, okay, what wouldn't work. Let's try and keep something that is fixed, and it's fixed for the children, so they know exactly what's happening when, you know, as a standard, to keep it steady for them. I was quite lucky in the fact that my work were flexible in the Wednesdays, in particular, because I would have to finish work early to pick them up. I'd have to start
Sure.
work late on the Thursday to drop them at school. So they were flexible in moving my hours on a permanent basis. So that was a big help in things too. How we came about exactly on Wednesdays and every other weekend, I guess we just both spoke through it, what we were both happy with. I mean, I was happy with that, and we always, I think, did say from the start it could be, if possible, if I'm free.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. How do you deal with holidays, Catherine? What is
Yeah,
there a different
absolutely.
arrangement in holidays?
Holidays, yeah. So in the holiday periods, I guess officially, nothing's official because it's between the two of us, but I do have them for a week in the summer for a holiday. Other holiday periods that they go to camps and do normal things into Easter, summer holidays, but we do keep it relatively fluid as well on those periods, because obviously we're both workers, so it's a challenge for everybody. So I'm quite lucky these days, especially since COVID, that I do work from home, so they can be here, they can be with Kate. It's quite nice and fluid. I keep using the word fluid for some reason. Maybe that is the word, but for how it is, yeah, it's all up for discussion. There's nothing too set, if you like.
I like the word fluid, and I think it's massively important to have that, like, it's fixed so that everybody kind of knows where they are. But if something changes, then you can move about that. Nobody's going to go, no, but it's definitely your weekend or whatever. Things change, don't they?
Mhm.
Catherine, how has the co-parenting changed over time? Because as I mentioned before, the boys were little when you first divorced, and obviously now they're heading rapidly towards the teenage years. How have things changed for you as co-parents during that time?
I think probably we've stuck to what Andy said. You know, the schedule is the same, but I guess it's more a measure of how we've carried on being friends post-divorce that enables that fluidity that Andy said. I mean, it is still a Wednesday. We've had times where we've said, well, maybe we should move to a Tuesday night or the Thursday night, but then we've always come back to Wednesday's quite a good midweek point. You know, I don't want them not seeing daddy for 4 days, 5 days. It's too long. And I think also it's just about putting the boys always first. It was never set up just because of what we needed. It was what would work for them. You know, you don't go from being married to not married. There's a long transition, and Andy moving out and getting his home established. And so always, I think we were both quite conscious that they were 18 months and 4, but that you've just made these lives, and they're still there. And even if your marriage hasn't worked, they're still there and they need looking after, and they've been with daddy every day and they've been with mummy every day. So how do you create a life where they still get a lot of that? And so, I mean, now it's probably we're more involved than ever, because they're not babes in arms. They have to be driven to football club, rugby club. We're seeing a play together at school tonight that one of them's in. We go to parents' evenings together. We might sometimes have a break together. We'll do the odd thing at Christmas together. And that's a measure, I think, of the friendship. You know, we could be very separate, but actually the boys need their parents at sports day. They need their parents at this, that, and the other. So without kind of confusing them that we're still married, I think we turn up as the team, because they deserve to have their mum and their dad there. And that shouldn't change just because the marriage hasn't worked out. I mean, Andy will call every day, often on the way to school, and if there's something to say, or just what's happening in your day, or if there's been exams and how did they go, he's a very ever-present person in their lives. And I certainly hope they'll grow up and think, unlike Andy said with his, that they absolutely saw their dad, knew their dad, had full access to their dad. He was involved in every part of their life. So that's the way I'd like it to be. And we work we work hard on that.
Oh, do you know what? That's so lovely. Like, I've got a lump in my throat. I had a similar experience in my parents' divorce, to the one you described, and when I got divorced, that it was that co-parenting relationship that was vitally important to me as well. I'm interested to know if, because you both seem really lovely and both very chilled out and both kind of putting the children in at the center. So I always talk about putting the children at the center but not in the middle. What were some of the challenges about co-parenting at the beginning, Andy?
I guess a lot of people fall into the trap for whatever reasons of maybe the parents are not as friendly as they could or should be, and pushing the children against the other parent, and that was one key thing not to do. They knew that we're still a family, inverted commas, still a family. We're still all friendly. We're all still happy. We all still really like each other, and that there's no animosity. That there was no negative one parent towards the other via the kids. That was a key thing not to do, because that really is damaging for them. It really is. I mean, just slightly off subject, we know people that have had parents that they're similar ages to us. They've had parents that stayed together for the kids, in inverted commas, I guess, and they've been damaged long term, and they would freely say that and tell us that. So that was really a key thing to take away in the decision to divorce, and key to just, I mean, everything is around the children, of course, to make sure they're happy and sane. They were very young when we did split up, as Kate said, very young. So for them, they, especially 18 months old and 4-year-old, just about vaguely remembers that I lived in the house, but not really. So this is their norm, which, I don't know if that's a bonus or not, because some children are obviously a bit older and they remember the marital home and then how it is afterwards. But for us, they don't remember anything prior to there, which maybe, I don't know if you call it a bonus or not, but it is a good thing. And they so far seem okay, sane, decent children in growing up. I mean, the teenage years might be slightly different. And
Maybe not.
you never know. And they can be different children when they're with myself or with Kate. They really are. The things that they can or can't say to one parent or the other, being they're males, I'm a male, etc. That I'm trying to think of no negatives but positives for them, and I think that's a positive. We spoke between ourselves, and they are slightly different children when they're with me or with Kate. But that, I think, that helps them grow, ask different questions to different people.
And we talk about that, don't we? We compare notes about that, which is important. Have you had this discussion, or what are you hearing? So we're still differently, but in the same way a married couple might. Your children will have different relationships with mum versus dad, and that's normal, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. When there are big decisions to be made, and probably talking more about your 12-year-old than your 9-year-old, because I'm figuring that your 12-year-old's probably getting to the point where they're going to be pushing boundaries and so on. When there are decisions about what they are and aren't allowed to do, are those decisions that you both make together, or Catherine, do you make decisions about what they can and can't do when they're at yours, and Andy makes the ones that feel right for him when they're at his? How do you navigate that?
I think we probably have talked about the big thing, like when might they have a phone. That's a big one.
Both,
we haven't talked about this before. I think we're both on the same path there, and that's where I think it would create friction for a child if they can do one thing really differently with the other parent, because that confuses the child. So I don't know, but that innately to me would be a point where I'd have to either give and share the same view as Andy to be consistent, or at least talk about it with the children all together. And we have times where we are all together, it's sort of picking up and handing back at the weekends and things like that. It's come in, let's have a meal, let's chat. It's not a 2-minute drop off.
Oh, that's lovely.
So there's always time for things like that. And we have together had a chat with our 12-year-old about incidents or the internet or anything and everything.
Yeah.
I think I'd always want to check with him, because you are raising the same child, not because we're in a marriage, but actually we want him to grow up to be a successful man. And therefore, I guess we probably have quite similar views on some of those things, and so that was always something. I'll let Andy comment, but that we had the same view on about, manners and the importance of family and swearing and, you name it. I think we are still quite similar in that regard, so that there haven't been so far too many, I can't think of any, like massive points of difference. But I can see that in other divorced families, that's where maybe it is painful, and then it's reinforced by the parents saying, well, your father wouldn't XYZ, or will go and do, and referring to that difference of the parents' opinion can be the source of pain for the children. I don't think we've had that yet.
No big differences on the big things, really. No, we're quite aligned on just all of those, which is quite lucky. If we're not, we have a good talk through it anyway, and put each other's points of view forward and come to a decision together. Generally, yeah, there's never any I'm doing this and that's it. Sorry, that there's never anything like that, which is quite lucky for us. One thing that the children do sometimes, which is quite natural and normal, is if they're with me and I say, right, time for bed or time for X and Y, Mummy lets us stay up. always does. Like, okay, and I'll talk to Kate, and it's a case of no, not at all. So you have to watch out for that. They do try and, but that's just part of their learning and pushing boundaries and learning life.
Do you know what? You preempted, because I was just about to ask you just that question. I remember so I think my youngest was about 11 when we split up, maybe a little bit younger than that. And I remember her, and she's not normally like this, but she'd asked me if she could have something, or if I could give her some money or something like that, and I'd said absolutely no. And then she'd phone my ex and asked him the same question. I'm like, you cheeky so-and-so. And then he'd, of course, rung me and gone, this is what's happened and this is what she's asked for. And I was like, brilliant. I'm so glad you phoned, because I think our co-parenting relationship is pretty reasonable, but I don't think it's anywhere near the gold standard that you guys are up to. So yeah, that is it. It's that pushing against things, isn't it? And I think as they get older, it's those decisions that you're trying to take of, am I allowed to? It's like you mentioned the phone. It becomes like, oh, can I go to I don't know, can I go on my own to the park in the evening? Can I go into town? Can I go into the local city? And it's those sorts of things where they're sort of challenging their own independence, really, that start to be a bit like, oh, like I'm not very comfortable about them doing it, but I know I've kind of got to let the reins off a little bit. That I think, but I think you're right.
Another thing that's a challenge is two parents, two children. You can easily take one away to do something they love, and you have the one-to-one time. That is quite a big challenge. Obviously, most of the time I have both of them, and being boys, it's being a referee for fighting and everything else. And you get to know them really well, but the best way to get to know them is one-to-one. They are different children, and that for me is I guess a relatively rare thing. But when that does happen, that is so nice. So I guess that's one divorced negative, that two parents, two children in the same house, that could happen so much easier. We do it now and again, especially if we think one of them may have a bit of an issue or unhappy about something. We'll talk and okay, let's have one each and see if we can get them to open up when you're just one-on-one. I mean, that's I guess the golden time, maybe, if you want to call it that. You know, that is a challenge as well to do that, because you know, when Kate doesn't have the children, she has other things she wants and needs to do in her free time. So that is a challenge piece, but something we do overcome when we need to. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. That's a really good idea, because you're right, it is difficult. It's I guess my children live full time with me, and it is about kind of you're finding that you get the time as the person who lives with them most of the time. Like if they're off at a party or whatever, you get to spend time with one on one, but it's much more difficult for the I'm going to say dad in this instance, when they're not, you know, they're with you for a relatively short amount of time, and you have them both at the same time. Finding that one-on-one time must be much more difficult. But I like the fact that there's the fluidity of being able to do that if it feels right for the boys. That's really cool.
And you sometimes see people turning themselves inside out because it's their weekend or it's not their weekend, and I'm not saying I feel smug, but the obvious thing is then surely, well, then you put down your official schedule and you break it because the children need something different. So as Andy's saying, you know, it's okay, I'll do this and you do that with that one. And I think as people get more into a new life, you get further away from that flexibility, maybe, in particular if there's then new partners or new children, or you lose that thread, I think. And maybe we're just lucky, as well as we work hard, to keep saying, well, what do they need? Okay, well, you take this one and I'll do that one, you know, and to heck with the official weekends. I think we say that a lot.
Not sure that's luck, Catherine. It feels like it's a very carefully considered and planned out situation that you're in, and it, you know, it's really lovely to hear about. I'm interested in whether, and I can't imagine that this has ever been the case, but has there ever been a situation where either of them have said, no, I don't want to go this weekend or this Wednesday, I want to be in my house with my PlayStation and go on Minecraft for the whole weekend rather than go and see Daddy? And if so, how have you dealt with that situation?
Go on, Andy.
Well, that's for you to answer, really, because I'm sure you get that more than I do. They're at your house much more than mine, and that's their home. That's what they're used to. They've got most of their own things there. That's their comfort zone. And so when they come to mine, I'm sure there must be times when they say, oh, I don't really want to go, and it's boring there, or this and that, or whatever they give. I know sometimes you've said that to me if it happens too frequently, so I can understand it and adjust, but I'm sure it happens more to you, Kate, than it does to me.
I think if, say, one of them's not well, they typically might want to be with me, and that's not a measure of how Andy cares for them when they're sick. It's just, let's say you're into like day 3 of an illness and then it's Daddy's night. Well, there might be resistance because they're still wanting to just curl up in the bed and, you know, carry on being ill. That's just an inevitable. I think we've probably, looking back, I'm quite a tech phobe. Andy has lots of great games and driving stuff, and they're boys. So Daddy's house is full of exciting things, and it might be smaller, but there's a heck of a lot to do there, and it's always fun. And they have very clear boundaries as well. So I think and I hope that when they are there, they know exactly what's involved. They know what they can do. There aren't too many variables. I wouldn't say there's one better house or not, or there's one strict parent. I mean, actually, I probably would. They say Andy's much stricter, but I mean, but there's a lot of fun there, and they're boys. And again, maybe this is the fact of your personal situation. You know, I'm the only female, so I need advice on how to help them become young men. And there he is, their dad. He's right there. So of course, I'm going to be drawing on that and talking. And so that's beyond the topic, but you know, it's just a need for us to carry on being closely in touch about our sons. And you know, there's probably times when they prefer him to me, but they would anyway, don't all children? I often find myself, and I grew up in a very happy childhood. My parents were together well into my teens, and I look back and just think I had a massively different relationship with my mum and my dad. And I fought bitterly with one and not with the other. And I thought one was very strict and one was a walkover. And they happen to be in the same house, but they're two different people. And the older you get, and when you become a parent yourself, you see the flaws and the wonders of your parents. No one gives you a rule book. And so that's how I try and judge, you know, how will they judge us? Well, it was the first time that we were a mum or a dad, and we tried to put them first.
Yes, I know, absolutely. Andy, if you were to rewind things, going back to when you first split up, is there anything, I'm only talking about co-parenting, not anything else, but is there anything that you would change about how you set up the co-parenting relationship, or anything anything you would change about that process?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, I moved close. I didn't move far away, which was a definite. To be involved in their lives as much as I could. I see them as much as I well, it's never as much as you'd like to, but
yeah,
more than enough, and it's fluid, and it's more than just the set times and days. What would I have done differently? I guess the ideal is not to get divorced at all and have a happy family, but that wasn't the route we took. We took the route we did because we thought it was the best for everyone, not just in a selfish way, but for the four of us, I guess. I can't think of anything I would have done differently, to be honest. Kate, maybe you've got any thoughts, but I know I can think while you talk.
No, I mean, I think of the magic spreadsheet that we have, like behind the scenes, we have a spreadsheet of where we are and holidays and anything that gets mapped out, or inset days. You know, we look ahead as far as we can as to when, like if it's Andy's weekend and it's an inset day, then that's the Friday. If there's a bank holiday, well, then it's, if you've got them that weekend, then that's also the Monday. And we're both very organized people, so again, it just works like that. But we have a spreadsheet every year, you know, we roll it forward. I could probably know officially what I'm doing in November in 2025, because it's just yours, mine, yours, mine, yours, mine. It's just the benefit of Excel. But there's flexibility to change all that, you know, with big events we need, but it works like that. The boys know it, we know it. So it's like a little system, I suppose, that we've stuck to. And it's getting things like that in place and just putting them first, because you can spend a huge amount of time and energy and money and emotion dealing with your own relationship. And it's a game changer once you have kids. You've brought lives into the world, and you know, whatever's happened between you, there's other humans that need to be managed, and to try and not, you know, raise people that are broken and damaged and look back at their childhood rather than look forward into what they're going to do. It's important to give it thought. That sounds daft,
Yeah,
but
absolutely. No, not at all. When you were going through the process of getting divorced, did you have, other than your amazing sounding spreadsheet, did you have a parenting plan? Because I know this is something that a lot of divorce coaches talk about, putting into place a parenting plan. And I kind of, it's always struck me that putting a parenting plan in place when the children are 18 months and 4 in your case, that things are going to change about what's in there, like as they get older and older. And I just wondered if it was something that you'd put in place.
Not officially, no. I think if circumstances between us were different, not as close and friendly, then something official would need to be put in place, whatever they have in a standard parenting plan. But no, nothing official. Just we would initially, okay, let's see how it goes with the every other weekend and every Wednesday. Let's see how that pans out for us and our lives, and especially the kids' lives, and how they adapt to that, how happy or unhappy they are with it, and go from there. And obviously we could change it whenever we wished. So there was no official parenting plan. I don't even know what would be in one, to be honest. But I can see it being needed in a situation where people are not so friendly, talkative, open, etc. I can see it being needed then for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I can see it not really being needed between the two of you, but I think if there's certainly animosity or differences of opinion, or dealing with certain situations, it probably is needed. But yeah, I like your spreadsheet. that all sounds good.
If money's really tight, and that's often the way when you've got to create two homes, maybe perhaps a lot of families really have to kind of say, right, who will buy the uniform, or who will buy the football kit, or
Absolutely.
I can see you almost maybe need a statement of intent or something, which we haven't between us, and I'm aware of that as well. I think we're probably fortunate being in a affluent part of the country. We managed to get our divorce done, and so that hasn't been a real problem for us, but it might well be for lots of families. And so it's about having clarity, I guess, up front. And if you need, as well as your own financial settlement, if you need lots of detail about paying for children's things, then everything and anything you can write down, and using good advisors and solicitors and so on to, maybe there's content in a plan like that, or chapter headings that can help parents who are newly divorced to think, you might not know it now, but in a few years you're going to need X and Y, and because that's just the fact that none of us quite know what we're heading into as parents. I mean, ours were at nursery and it was quite regimented, so that was the routine. We weren't really setting it. Our kids were in the routine they were in, and then infant school and school, so. But yeah, I can see the processes would be good for some families when they start.
Yeah.
Just thinking
Sorry,
of,
go on.
as amicable as everything sounds, that there are still points where you're at loggerheads and you're maybe not enemies, but there are points where you're battling against each other. The financials is one, of course, and that will be for every divorce, I guess. The financials were one, and the other one was something we didn't think about until I physically moved out, which was all the possessions in the house. Who has what? That was something that until I moved out we didn't discuss and think about. So then we had the discussion about that. I want this, I want that. And that I think, especially the financials, they were the two hardest parts. And I just remember when we finished the financial chats between us, we had a hug and a cuddle and said, right, that's done now. Let's move on. We're friends again. Carry on. Let's do everything as we should for the kids, and move on and get this done as smoothly as we can. And obviously that was the introduction of the children to the idea of daddy's not here anymore and there's another house. That was a challenge on the kids side. not too big. I mean, excuse me. Kate would come to my house obviously before the children saw it, got comfortable with it, what was here, how it was, and then first few times Kate would come with the children, so they didn't see it as a mental mummies and daddies. It's everybody's. And as Kate said, when I drop them off, I stay there for a while, or I pop in on an evening from nearby. So they don't see it as a differentiation or a divide. They see it as everything is everybody's.
Yeah. Oh,
that's a really
brilliant.
good point. I thought about that physicality of the place, as in, Andy's welcome in my house, I'm welcome in his. I sat my exams at his. He had a better internet, so I went around and did some of my exams with it. Like it's a measure of that. I would hate the boys to feel that there's a place that mummy can't go, or that daddy can't come. That again, that just seems really sad if that was the case, because they're both places that they both go. I remember a bit of making sure that we had enough pants and socks at daddy's, and that sort of just, it's extra work. You have to think ahead and be planned, and in some cases just have two of everything, which costs more money. But it's less so as they get older, because they manage themselves a bit more. They know they need to take their, you know, tennis racket or football shirt, you know, otherwise they're the ones that lose out, and that's just part of teaching them to grow up. So it's got easier over the years.
Absolutely. On the subject of finances, Andy, I'm interested in how you navigate not spoiling them when you see them perhaps less than you. I mean, in an ideal world, we see our children every day. So, do you manage to not spoil them rotten? And how do you manage that?
I guess I do, because I see them regularly, so it's not a case of I see them once a month.
Sure.
I've got to treat them so they like me and bond with me. The bribes, I guess. So it's not quite like that, because I see them quite often. They always want everything, as all children do. And I don't just buy them things because they ask and beg 50 times and just to shut them up. I do try and make them learn things in life. So if they want football cards, if they want to do an X and Y, okay, no problem. What are you going to do for me? What are you going to do to earn that right? So they would sweep somewhere, cut the grass, and whatever else. So it's I don't see myself as a walkover there, if you know what I mean. And I don't have to feel I have to shower them with money and gifts to get them to like me, because I do see them regularly. I think maybe if I didn't see them as much, it may be a slightly different story, I think. But no, yeah.
Andy's secret weapon is chocolate Darth Vader's. He has like an ice tray that you and I might fill with water, but he fills with dairy milk, and they're in the shape of Darth Vader. And the only thing that they consistently ask for is, if Daddy's coming, has he got any chocolate Darth Vaders? Where are the chocolate Darth Vaders? And that's a very cheap but you know, simple tool to make children very happy. It works a treat.
Amazing. How do you, so again, kind of on the kind of gifting and spoiling, my experience is that where there's the parents live in different houses, they get double at Christmas and for birthdays. How do you manage that?
Sometimes if they want a large present, we would club together. A bike or something that's quite expensive, we would club together. But other times, I mean, generally they do get 2 sets of presents, to be honest. 2 sets of holidays. I mean, that is a big bonus from their point of view. But we talk between ourselves to make sure either side of our families don't duplicate on what we do buy them. We talk about things they want, the value of things, how do we share the load and not duplicate and not overindulge them, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Also,
glad there's some things that you guys do that normal co-parents do.
I think also it's only the present from mum and dad, because I mean the grandparents on Andy's side, there's grandparents on my side, they would all probably have bought the children presents anyway. So it's not double everything. We just try and coordinate what each of us are buying, and stocking fillers and things like that. And we try and have a day at Christmas where we're together, and we have, you know, my mother-in-law is still my mother-in-law, and I love her dearly, and I don't want her to not see the children, you know, so we do a lot at Christmas, but I guess that does require you to get on with each other.
There's a point. Yeah, Christmas is always a discussion point, but we've got into a good rhythm, which is the same just about every year. So I like to be with them Christmas Eve, Christmas Day morning. So what we generally do is I would go to their main house and be with them for that period, and then Kate would take them away to see her family Christmas Day afternoon, Boxing Day, and then I would take them back and then take them to see my family for the rest of the break. So we have quite a good fluid piece there. I can see where for others that would be always the challenge of I want them Christmas Day, no, I want them Christmas Day. We're lucky we don't have that. And I guess if that was the case, we would maybe alternate each year. We haven't got to that point, luckily.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to navigate that. We alternate. I like I like having them Christmas Eve and Christmas Day morning. Those, for me, especially when they were little, those are their little faces on Christmas morning is just like something you can't beat. But I know, you know, I know my ex appreciates that as well. So we've always said alternate Christmas Eve night and Christmas morning, and then switch around at kind of lunchtime, and then the other person has them for the rest of Christmas Day. So you either get Christmas dinner or you get Christmas morning. And I kind of think, yeah, if you can't spend it together, that is one way of, you know, making sure that you both benefit at least some years from that. So
I think they'd also be sad if they, you know, there'll be times when we're doing something and the boys will say, "What about Daddy?" So, you know, that doesn't mean can Daddy come and we're doing it at 4 again, but it means that, you know, they're keen to know what Daddy's doing. So that's again another reason to not have long periods of time where you've, you know, excluded Daddy or vice versa.
Sure.
I think because they are aware.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it does make me think of times of negatives over the years of being divorced. So if I'm doing something with them and they're having just an amazing time, I think, oh, it'd be great if their mum could see this as well. That's a bit of a slight sad point. Or if you're on holiday, the same sort of theory, they're having a great time, lovely time. Oh, I wish someone could see this. But we do a lot of these days. It's great with phones and cameras, video and photos. And if I'm away with them the weekend, I'll send them to Kate just so she can see what we're up to, what's going on, what we're doing, how happy they are, etc. So that helps cover it, I guess. So, yeah, that is one negative of being separate, of course. Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. I like that. That's really cool. We have been talking for ages and sadly are coming to the end of our time together. I just wondered if there was any final piece of advice that either of you have for our listeners.
Yeah, there's one thing that I find, being the person that doesn't have them the most. So generally, it's the dad that has this. Is say I'll have them from a Friday afternoon, evening onwards. I'm used to living on my own. They're used to living with Kate. There's not all the time, but sometimes on a Friday evening, there's an adjustment period, both for myself and for them. I wouldn't say there's arguments, wouldn't say there's tension, but there's an adjustment period where you get used to each other again. They get used to the way I am, I get used to the way they are. Not frosty, not odd, but just something to be aware of. And then the Saturday onwards is great. We're all on the same wavelength and everything's good. So that's another just thing to think about for the person that doesn't have them too often, or as often.
Perfect. Good advice. I like that. Anything from you, Catherine?
Just put them at the center, you know, assuming you wanted children in the first place. They are, and I say this at least once a week to someone in business or a parent at school or a friend divorcing. I always say they're the best thing that came out of the years that we had together. So, you know, that what's not to treasure, and, you know, so.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. That's such a lovely point to finish on. Thank you ever so much for joining me. I've really enjoyed that conversation, and I just think it's going to be so incredibly useful for so many people. And you know, I'm sure nobody ever tells you this, but you're doing an amazing job. And yeah, just my heart goes out to both of you for doing such a great job. I don't think many people get told as parents that we're doing a good job, but as you said before, there's no rule book, and it's fantastic. So thank you.
Thanks very much. Good to talk with you.